our meeting. The date is November 11th. No, I'm sorry, November 22nd, 2022. In attendance, we have myself, Don Keefe, Trustee Jennifer Leone, Vice President George Tico, our Fiscal Officer, Mr. Todd Bosley, our Fire Chief, Rich Peterson, and our lawyer, Mr. Jim Matthews. This is about tonight, we're going to have discussion about rental and leasing or use of our public facilities. Okay.
When you first think about it, when I first thought about the public use of a facility, you think, why not? You know, and I guess back in the 90s, I talked to Rich some today, the township elected not to allow some birthday parties and personal use of the facilities because they were worried about, it got to be where messes were left behind and some liability issues, et cetera, et cetera. So I guess the policy of the township has been not to do that. But rather, if we do use it, we use it for civic events, such as, you know, government issues and zoning meetings. And, you know, if the Boy Scouts want to use it, they try to make it into a teaching session. So there's always a fireman there that opens the building, lets them in, kind of manages the space, and then makes sure that things are clean when they leave. And then they also maybe try to teach the kids about fire or about Nimishillen Township or whatever at the same time. They try to make it a teaching event. So whenever someone wanted to use the facility, I found out about it yesterday, to use it for a personal Thanksgiving Day feast or whatever. You think, well, why not? But then when you think about liability issues and insurance issues, so I'm a little bit torn both ways. And you know, my feeling is that the precedent was set, and that's the way it's been. Do we leave it that way? And if so, is it legal to leave it that way? I guess that's a question. We really may not know that answer tonight. But I mean, everybody can read the revised code and maybe interpret the way they want, but I'm not an attorney, nor am I an expert on this at all, but you know, I don't know.
I think it clearly says we have a duty to, because the community, it's community property. Is it or is it not? We don't own it. We have dominion over it, and we regulated our discretion to use. Yeah, and I think the issue is, an employee asked me, would it be okay if we have family coming in, we have a meeting spot, and I said, I don't see anything wrong with that. Because I know I had my grandson's birthday party at your township, and my daughter did not come before the board. It's not in your minutes that she asked permission, and by resolution that you granted her approval to do so. Also, I know Uniontown does it, Greentown does it, everybody does it, and all of a sudden it was this security breach that I gave a code out, that you gave me your code, I use your code to get in that building. Don has the same code.
You have your own code. You have your own code now, for clarity.
The reason why we have a code is because we have to go to that building to sign checks that we normally have those checks brought to us. So we have no business even being in the building. So why is it a security breach if your office is locked up?
Because you gave your code to an employee.
Doesn't matter.
I felt it mattered.
Yeah, but you're singling out an employee. All employees have codes. Kelly has a code, Don has a code, I have a code.
We all have our own codes. We don't share them.
Every employee
We don't
has
share
a
them.
code. And that's the truth.
Yeah, we don't share
And to
them.
single one out and say you don't get a code, or you did something wrong, what was the breach, Todd?
I'll explain it. Thank you for an opportunity.
Yeah.
This is Todd Bosley, the fiscal officer,
Yes, sir.
for those who can't see me. I was informed by my secretary or assistant that you had given Jeff Shipman, our zoning inspector, your code.
Right.
He was there to do whatever he was there to do.
Take a picture of the room.
Okay.
That's what he asked for.
Right, but if you look at the wall, we have a phone. He just picked that phone up, and the dispatcher
and
lets you in.
Them. He's told me, he's called and said, hey.
I'll let you
this
tell
is
your
Justin.
story, then I'll tell mine.
Okay.
So go ahead. So if you finish.
That's all that I'm aware of.
All right.
So I know your office is locked. I know that you do leave checks out in the training room, and that's your security breach. There's routing numbers and account numbers, and our vendor numbers with AT&T, our account numbers, they're all spread out on that desk. If an HVAC person comes in, electrician comes in, a delivery, a rug person, a uniform person, there's tons of people in and out of that building. Jeff was not a security breach. You should have your stuff locked up or bring it to the meeting where we sign it. You leave it out on the desk. All I need is a checking and a routing number. Everybody knows that. And you leave them out in front of God and everybody.
But to
No, it's
clarify,
not.
There isn't anybody else coming in.
Thank
and
you,
out.
Rich.
Well,
There is
It's a
not.
secure building and it's only fire
But there's
officials
there's
that come in
other
and out.
employees in the building, Rich.
I
You're-
understand, but we
see,
can
you're-
track
we treat
every one of
all.
them.
I know, but we need to treat everybody as equals.
So I'd like to finish my story now that I've been drug into it. I'm the fiscal officer, and I moved my office to Station 3 because of what I felt were security issues at this building. This is open, as you say, to God and everybody. Station 3 is not. Everything is on camera. Everybody has their own code. When I realized you shared your code with an employee, it was my job, it's my job to notify the fire chief
Okay.
and the board. I did not expect your unprofessional email back
You
for
know
me
what?
only doing my
'Cause
job.
it's games, Todd. You know it. You're playing games.
Let
You
him
have,
finish.
Alright.
Jennifer.
you
Let
do.
him
Well, but
finish.
he's
I don't
attacking
understand
me.
how
It has
security
well
of
You
our
know what?
as well as you.
Well,
But-
Enough.
Tough. Don't tell
Look-
me enough, Don. Don't.
the point of it is that is more than a fire station. That's a dispatch center for many
I know that.
different facilities, and it's under a bunch of different agencies.
Right.
There's a lot of different things that have to go on. I'm going to continue to do my job whether you send me ugly, unprofessional
Well, I
emails
don't
or
care.
not. I know, and that's why I'm letting you know.
Good.
I'm going to do my job because that's my job, and that's all I did. I let you guys know. Let me ask you this question, George. Did you know our zoning inspector was going to be using that hall for
I
things?
didn't know
And
until-
Don, did you know?
Did not know.
See, neither of you
Till
knew,
yesterday.
Right.
and so I let you know. That's all I have to say.
Well, I didn't know that I needed to make a resolution for somebody to have a turkey dinner. Honestly.
Anything
If I
you,
overstepped,
I'm not saying
I am
that.
so sorry.
I'm not-
But you know what?
I'm not saying it's wrong.
There's plenty that goes on in this township that never gets a resolution. You don't have the authority to tell everybody to change the security codes. You did that without a vote. Don calls me and says, "Oh, Jeff, I have the voicemail on my phone that you left Jeff. You called Jeff. You said I talked to George, I talked to Rich, and we've decided you can't have your Thanksgiving, and you're going to cancel it. Are you allowed to call and collect votes and make a decision
There wasn't
without a
there wasn't
resolution?
a vote.
Doesn't matter. If
Here's
I
the
can't
thing.
make a
I'll let you
reservation,
finish. I'll be-
if I can't make a reservation for a turkey dinner, if I don't have the authority, you can't cancel it. Do you understand?
How
our
can I
votes-
cancel
our votes-
something that was
Right,
not
but-
it was not authorized to start with, so
Okay, was
cancellation's
it
kind of a
authorized
new
for you
point.
to cancel the
How can I
dirt in,
cancel
on
something
Ford
that
Street?
was
Exactly.
not?
I'm gonna interject here.
It's about
Okay,
equality. I'm really tired of everybody jumping on me over a turkey dinner. I really am. Well, all the mistakes, all the things that go around here, there's no accountability. You say that's a liability? We have a pancake breakfast. What if somebody slips and falls?
But that's
What
a-
if somebody
that's a-
chokes on a
That's
pancake?
an open
But
house
it's
that's
liability, it's
supervised. No, wait a
liability.
minute, that's
I know.
supervised by the
But
firefighters.
it's
The
not.
fire department's there. It's an organized
Okay.
event. It's a fire prevention event. I have no control. If you
I
let
know.
people come into the building,
That's my
who's
point.
gonna regulate
Right.
if they go into the bays? Who's gonna regulate
You
if something
can't get
comes up
into
and?
them, you know they're
Yes,
locked.
you can. No, the
They're
bays
locked.
are not locked. You can walk right through those doors.
I really,
You can't.
honestly, it's.
We have
it's
never-
egregious. I understand.
We've never let this open like that. And I can't have the liability. You trust me and the residents trust me with that building and all the equipment inside. The firefighters are dependent. When they show up, that equipment's gonna be ready to go. If we're here helping kids and doing, you've been to our breakfast.
Right.
They're very organized,
Yes.
very structured. Nobody's running around and doing that thing.
Right.
Can somebody trip and fall? Sure.
Yes.
But you have no control when we just let somebody use the building.
Right.
Nobody's
Well, it was
gonna
an
be
hour
there
and
to
a half and
supervise
he's
it.
worked- well,
Nobody's gonna be there to supervise it. Who's gonna make sure things get put in place? Who's gonna make sure
well,
things don't
stop by
come?
if it's necessary. It was just, you know
But
what, I
this
thought
is-
it was a nice, I thought it was, it's a community.
You know how many
room.
times I've had to tell people no
Well, you should.
over the years?
Well,
And there's a resolution on the books from the mid-90s, but it's still a
Well, we
resolution
didn't
that's
know.
in, but I did. And if you would have called me, and Jeff knew
Well, I
this
haven't, all
because
due
Jeff
respect, you haven't
asked
been to a
me.
meeting,
But
the
Jeff
last
asked
3
me-
meetings, I haven't seen you,
Okay, but you
Rich.
could pick the phone up.
I know, but I don't work for you.
Okay.
I don't.
But I could have told you about the
Right.
resolution. Jeff knew about it because
Right.
he asked me about it, and I told him we're not provided these buildings. You're not allowed to use them. He knew that, and he still went to you. He still went to you to make that request.
Yeah,
So-
I don't see what it's about a turkey dinner. It's not that
No,
I
it's about
authorize
it's
some
about the facility.
egregious.
I'm not criticizing
know.
you. I'm saying that I'm just telling you why we can't have it just wide open.
Well, but then rule's a rule, liability's liability, period. And that's my point, Jim, you need to step forward here and tell me what about the Ohio Revised Code and what it says about the use of buildings.
Yeah, there are-
You rent your facility out.
Yeah, we actually, here, I'll use my township as an example after I
Yes.
just quickly cover the code. And the code's kind of quirky for you, okay? The main provision, I have no idea why it's buried in the school section of the revised code, but you'll see the 33-1376. Did I give you one, Don?
No, I did not.
Here, I'll give you this one, but thanks, Rich. You'll see that it bootstraps into the availability of buildings, and it includes buildings maintained by taxation under the laws of this state. Now, that's been interpreted by the Ohio Attorney General to literally include any building that is maintained by taxation under the state. Now, theoretically, of course, that would include your town hall. You consider your other fire station your town hall too.
Yeah.
You're at your town hall, you've got this building here, which would technically fall under that. Fire Station 3, which is the one I think we're talking about, right? And any other buildings that you have under your control. Now, there are other weird provisions in this code. It does say that they shall be available for use for entertainment and education of the people, adult and youthful population, discussion of all topics tending to the development of personal character and civil welfare, or for religious exercises. That's what it says, so
That's what it
that's
says.
what we have to deal with. Now, the other provision that's interpreted, though, is this: such occupation shall not seriously infringe upon the original and necessary uses of the property. That's never been interpreted in a court, but again by the Attorney General, to mean that that vests you with discretion to make determinations as a board whether opening certain buildings up would seriously infringe upon the original and necessary uses.
Right.
When you have some policy in place, your rules and regulations, they do have to be fair and reasonable and applicable to everybody.
Everybody.
So, for
Does that-
instance,
Does that
in the-
include the citizens?
Absolutely.
well, technically, the citizens, upon application, either of an organization or at least 7 people, can apply to use a town hall for a civic purpose.
But-
There's a separate provision of the code, which is 51103, and I'm sorry I didn't print that for you.
I have it right here.
You
got it?
You want me to
Okay.
read it?
Well, to summarize, that pertains more particularly to a town hall, you'll see.
Right.
So your town hall belongs to the control of the township, which means it's controlled by the board. And here it provides very clear discretion that you may rent or lease any of that property for recreational facility as you deem appropriate. Now, the way those two provisions have been read together is that if a civic group steps up and says, hey, there's 8 of us, I have no idea why it's at least 7. There's 8 of us and we have no other place to meet, and we wanna use your town hall to have a community meeting about whatever the topic of the day is.
Right.
The cemetery.
Yeah, whatever the topic of the day is. Then, as long as the time and the date are arranged in a fashion so as to not infringe upon the use of the building, for that purpose, you have to let them use it. Okay?
But since
Now,
this building was constructed as a fire station
different
with
story.
fire tax dollars,
Different
and its
story.
purpose was for that, it was a training room. You have living quarters, you have the kitchen area, this is all tied together, and that's what it was constructed for, that's what the taxpayers voted to
Mhm.
fund. There was no general fund money to construct that. Why would you open that up? We do it as a courtesy for the civic events, like the OVI task force meeting they had there, or, the Rotaries had
Yeah.
a meeting there, or
Yeah.
things like that, but they're all supervised, they're structured, and they don't impede upon the process of what
That's-
we're doing. Opening this up to have just anybody come in, that's gonna impede our,
Oh,
and I didn't
I-
research it today, but I'll get
It
the
wasn't
leads.
just anybody, but I do have the text that you sent, that you do allow employees, family members to come in and have dinner there too.
They can come and eat with their family members,
Right,
yes.
it's the same for an
No, it's
employee.
not, this
As
is
they're working.
supervised.
But it is
They're
the
working.
same, an
No.
employee's an employee, Jim.
It's not supervised.
Well, here, there's a lot of tricky little features
Right.
in here. But the bottom line is, these two provisions had to be construed together. So the Attorney General looks at them as saying, there is a clear distinction drawn in a town hall setting. And I don't know if you actually have a town hall.
Right.
Was that a ballot issue that built that building?
Well, but we've had our township meetings at each of our fire stations.
See, that's the quirky part of everything they
Yeah.
write in all
Right.
this.
And it
Well,
can't-
my
A
feeling
town hall
is-
has a specific definition.
Right, we can define a policy if this is such an egregious issue.
Yeah.
I just didn't think,
get
I
you.
really, it's Thanksgiving, I don't know what else to say.
I think your situation here is just what's brought it to a
Yeah,
head.
it
to
was
revisit
honestly-
your existing
It was
policy.
innocent, and then all of a sudden I
Absolutely.
opened my
Right.
email and it's like, bang, bang, you can't do this, Jennifer, you don't have any authority, you shouldn't have done this. And there's been a ton of things that have happened without a vote.
Yeah, I think that's
you know?
fairly, it's just come to a head with this particular incident.
It has.
But to finish a couple themes or thoughts about the Lexington Township example. We, for instance, don't allow our road building to be open to the public because we have determined that any such use would infringe with the original and necessary use of that property. I don't care even if we could segregate a little portion of a garage on a particular, we're not gonna do that because it would interfere with the use of the building. The same thing with our station number 2, which is a fire station only. We don't even hold public things there, and we don't have it available to the public to use. Technically, our town building, our town hall building, is not a town hall because it was never a ballot issue either. But we treat it kind of as a town hall. That's where we have our meetings. And we do have a limited policy where we will allow certain people to use it if it's available. We have some rules in place. You gotta keep it clean. You gotta make sure it's clean when you leave. There's no alcoholic beverages on the premises, that type of thing. And they sign a hold harmless agreement, kind of like the sample I gave a couple of you tonight. Just as an added measure of security. And there is a provision in the code too that people who are entitled or given the privilege to use your facility have to agree to be responsible for any wear and tear beyond what would be ordinary. It's not like you're gonna measure how much wear and tear on the carpeting or something. But they do have to be responsible for that. So construing these two provisions together, basically you have a lot of discretion for the use of your buildings, and that's by anybody. Your personnel, your residents, your civic organizations, other groups, that type of thing. The only limitation on you is if you have a responsible organization, don't ask me what that is intended to be, or at least a group of 7 citizens who want to use your building for a particular civic event as expressed in here. Like we covered, for instance, there's a hot topic of the day that's come up, whatever it is, a school proposal or whatever, and people wanna meet at your location. Generally, you have to accommodate that as long as that event doesn't interfere directly with a particular use. So the long and short of it is, you have the discretion to exclude people from most of your buildings if it will interfere with the uses of the building. And that's a determination for the board.
Right.
It sounds like the board already kind of made a decision years ago, you said?
A long time ago.
Okay.
Yeah, they did, and
Particularly with regard to Station 3. That
Yeah,
because
Station
of-
Yeah, we're just
oh, two?
unaware.
Two is
Yeah.
two. Because of the way it functions, the way it's laid out, the access and things like that, I could see where a board
Yeah.
could determine
Broadway's
that
one.
this is just something that
Broadway's
shouldn't be
one.
open generally for any public event.
the issue at
Unless
Station
it's
3,
being managed by the departments.
Station 3 has a smaller parking lot, and I guess I just don't
Out
understand what
front there.
happens, when
Right, I already told
when
them you
somebody
can't block
pulls
the
in and they
bays. No,
block
they
the
know
bay
that.
and the fire truck
They
can't
know
get out.
that.
A waiver's not gonna save you on that. That becomes a
No.
They know that.
liability
And
And
then.
see, that's why that would be another feature, I think, that
Right.
goes into using your discretion as a board to determine whether or not that facility should be open for any particular uses, personnel or otherwise.
And I haven't submitted it to the state of Ohio, the Leeds board, but they may restrict it right now. There's tough restrictions on that facility. If we lose that LEED certification, you lose all your police agencies. Like, I can't even have, the firefighters aren't allowed to go into dispatch. That's how regulatory they are in
Right.
this. So I
Yeah, they
don't
can go
know,
there and chit chat.
if I call them tomorrow and say, hey, can we use this communication center building for, a community room, let people come in unsupervised, that may negate the whole thing.
Well, we've had zoning meetings there. Well,
I
we've-
wasn't in
we've-
favor of it, but I
we've-
gave you the
But we
approval.
did do that.
I-
We ate there, we had,
I would
was there.
suggest
and
you
I
go
was
back.
there one year and
Yeah.
you were there.
I would suggest you go back to the township hall, because it's
Because
unsupervised.
yeah, and because of the,
Well, it's the space, it's a great space and has the,
yeah,
you know,
but,
that's-
but I
it's
agree, with-
centrally
because it's
located.
the dispatch center, it's a big deal. I mean, we got a lot of contracts and a lot of good agencies that we're in contract
Yeah.
with.
And these are all configuration issues that he's talking about too. Our
Right.
particular town hall, you saw the one main entrance.
Right.
That can lead off into that meeting room. Everything else can be locked off.
right,
You can't access the bay.
and
or
you can't
anything
access dispatch whatsoever.
else. So I think it's just a collective judgment you need to make on whether or not these facilities are available and what terms and rules would regulate them. When we allow our facility to be used, a trustee is responsible for opening and closing, because we're not obviously gonna give a key to someone.
Right.
And generally, when we know the times it's being used, the trustee will show up, open it up, go back up when it's to be closed, make sure it's reasonably clean, and take care
Lock
of
it
it,
up.
turn the lights off and lock it up.
What about them? What about Maple Grove? Other than the dispatch, right?
The issue is, I don't think you have a building you can actually lock down away from
Yeah.
all the fire equipment.
Yeah, because you have to go back in to get to the kitchen.
And what
Dude,
happens
Chef,
when a
it's
kid?
their
just were
living
bringing
quarters,
Yeah.
guys.
food
This
in.
is, these are
Right.
people that after 6 p.m. could be running around in their shorts and relaxing, and so now they're gonna contend with people
I
that.
think it was like 1 to 3, and these people are in their late 80s, and they didn't have their house wasn't accessible.
The
and they were
restrictions-
gonna have a quick drop the turkey, eat, and leave. And
The
that's all it
restrictions you
was.
have on twos is the septic system. So we were forced to either spend $100 and some thousand to put a septic system in, or they had to put restrictions on it, which is why they ended up moving the township offices out. We could only have up to 2 firefighters working the 24-hour shifts, and 2 trustees meetings a month is what we're
Right.
limited on there. Otherwise, if you get too many people in there, it backs up and you have raw sewage all throughout that facility.
Right. You need a commercial system to replace it.
So we didn't want to spend the $100,000, and the Stark County Board of Health gave us that perimeter.
Right.
So, in Station 1, you can't hold public meetings in that meeting room because there's no ADA accessibility. It just has 2 stairwells. So
Oh,
they
it's
said you can't.
upstairs, you're saying, yeah.
Yeah, so you have a lot of features that kind of relate to that, what infringes upon the necessary use of the building. Just, you have physical problems with that, layout, that type of thing. And I think you've been given, again, some pretty good feedback from the fiscal officer and the fire chief about it. Doesn't mean you have to have an absolute refusal on all your properties. Your policy could simply, you take it on a case-by-case basis.
Yeah.
I'd still recommend it, even if you do it on a case-by-case basis, that you have some type of agreement. Doesn't have to be an elaborate agreement, just authorization by the board to release and hold harmless.
You can do that.
Did I give you one?
Anybody have anything else from the public?
Personally, I have to be honest, my son is a fireman, and I know they have bedrooms up there, and they gotta get dressed fast and run out for an emergency. Personally, I wouldn't like, if I was them, I wouldn't like somebody downstairs having a dinner. I just have to be honest about it.
I appreciate that.
I just had one last thing too. I mean, things you want to think about with this kind of stuff is like, what if someone brought bed bugs in? You may think that sounds crazy,
That's a
right?
real deal to
It's
me.
a real deal. If you're in real estate, you know bed bugs are a real deal, and that's something to be considered, because that would actually, we'd have to do whole treatments and all kinds of things there. That may be a little far fetched, but it may not be as far as things go these days. The firemen live there. I mean, we count on them to come to us, and there's millions of dollars of equipment there. And you know, kids are kids, and you let them out, and they love fire trucks, and they start playing with something, and there's too many problems. This is not well thought out, and if you want to do that, you could coordinate with the firemen, you know, and maybe move the trucks out of one of the bays at some point, or do something like that, or offer the people that need a place to do it, you know, offer them your house or a garage, or do something like that. That's an idea.
Yeah, I did offer them. I have a facility. I don't have a restroom in there,
Yeah.
and it wasn't going to
Yeah.
work. So I made a couple of phone calls, and I'm still waiting a couple of calls back for this person in particular to use another facility. And we'll wait to see. And I'll see if I can help them out. But and I don't know if we want to make a. We need to make a vote. We
Sounds
need
to
make
me
a
like
resolution.
right now you have a policy in place that doesn't allow.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna look back at
TV.
Rich has got a ton of knowledge, that he's been around for a long time. And if in the nineties they had problems with it, something had to set that precedence for them to
Well, it's
pass
extremely
that.
difficult to manage. You don't have the firefighters and the personnel that want to do this. You're gonna have to pay somebody to come stand by, and then it gets into the he said, she said, and I can't get guys that can go to work. I mean, and we're gonna find people to do this. And the last couple times that they've used that for that zoning thing, our guys had to come in the next day, clean everything up, empty the trash cans, do the dishes in the sink, and I'm all over them for doing that kind of stuff. It's a hard slap in the face for them to come back and do it.
Right.
And you're going to have that no matter who we put up there and unsupervised. So there's just a lot of, and the DEA issues. I got to pull our licenses and see about the drugs. I mean, you have narcotics in the back of those ambulances. What, you know, I got to look and see what the restrictions we applied for the licensing,
Yeah.
secure facility. So there's a lot more to it than just a room to rent out.
Right.
Well, we weren't talking about doing it on a regular basis. This is just a one-off. It really truly
But if you do
is.
it once, you gotta
Right,
continue.
yeah.
Well,
That's it.
but the law says you can't discriminate, though. I think you need to dig a little bit deeper into
Yeah, you
it.
can't- you can-
Like
you can-
overall, it's
yeah.
public funds, period. It's not our, I'm not saying, I'm just
Right.
being devil's advocate, it's a public fund.
Like
You
I
know,
said, you can't walk
publicly
into the
funded.
Stark County Sheriff's Office and
Oh, I
do
understand
stuff.
that.
People,
Of
I've had the
course not.
challenges before that
Yeah.
it's, you know,
Yeah.
I paid for that fire truck, I can take and drive it. No, you can't.
No, you
I
can't.
do
We
this.
get that.
I know.
I'm not
but so-
advocating
but
any
it's-
of that.
And
This
we're
was
not trying to,
just,
that's why we've always
Yeah.
tried to, for civic things, we said, okay, as a courtesy, we would do that.
Right.
We could have just said, no, I don't want to do any of it.
Right.
But when you just start going down the
it's just
opening it up.
anti-community, in my opinion,
It is.
to
A little
not, it really,
It's
you
the
know,
intended purpose
I'm
of the building,
sorry.
what it was built for. And the voters passed levies to pay for that. The crews agreed to work in that environment that was built for a fire station
Oh, I
for
get
the
that.
firefighters. And
I
that's
get
their
that.
home. And if you haven't worked 24 hours or 48 hours at a shift, you'd really appreciate, they don't get to go anywhere. That's their home. So when
Right.
people come from the outside, we're very cognizant of, you know, hey, this is their space. They need downtime. This is their time to relax and rejuvenate. So there's a
I
lot
get it.
more to it.
I get it, but it is funded by the taxpayers, so that's the most important
For a fire
aspect
station.
of it.
But
It just is.
But again, it's written a very poorly
it.
fashion. I mean,
It
technically, this would extend to everything.
Absolutely.
Us as a group right now, are there 8 of us?
Yeah.
There's probably enough of us to right now make a request to use the State House
Right.
for something.
And well, and then you brings up a good point. When you watch these TV shows and you wonder how people are allowed to be on, you know, the Capitol steps and burn a flag,
Right.
you think, what the world? You know, why are they letting them do that? Well, it's public, yada yada yada, and they're allowed, and that, you know,
That-
I get it.
you know, it's a First Amendment issue. that
Sure.
Gives them some reasonable
Yeah.
use of that. But again, I can guarantee you, if we made a request to use the State House, it's gonna be flatly denied. They're not gonna accommodate us to find a room to pigeonhole us in for any purpose, whether it's a dinner or not. Just because it interferes with their ordinary operation. And you can take it to any extreme. You used the example of the sheriff's office. I'm sure I can't use the courthouse anytime.
right?
Be kinda neat to have a birthday party in the McKinley courtroom though, but
Yeah.
I'm sure they're not gonna let me do that.
Well, I just feel like there's a difference between civil, like to have a meeting for an issue or something.
Yeah, for something
And
that's come up.
personal's different. They're different,
Yeah.
they're two separate things.
Right.
I just don't think that the room should be used for birthday parties or dinners or, I just don't think so. I think if you have a get together if you wanna organize for an issue, any issue,
Right.
that's fine. But these are government offices and I just don't think they should be used for personal
Yeah,
use.
but a lot of the other,
Municipality.
they do it.
Some of
I'm
them.
just saying, because it's their way
But
of
they may
I
have
know,
that.
but
extending
we're
to the community.
taxpayers.
I know,
and
they're
we're paying.
They may have that
we're
town
paying
hall.
for it.
Right, that's all I'm saying.
It has to
Town
be
hall feature,
clean. Are they
feature.
using electricity?
Right, absolutely.
you know, all this is coming about and who's paying for it?
Right,
Right.
well, the
So-
theory is you would rent the space. you
Yeah,
know.
others have gone to like a community room.
Exactly.
Where it is a structured type of
Exactly.
rental type of thing.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly,
Yeah,
that's all.
and then you get the pushback from private entities that say you're just competing with them, so you're harming commerce in
Yeah.
your community.
You're hard.
Yeah,
So there's a
They
heck
should
of a
have used
lot
the
of
Eagles,
mixed
they're
bag.
taking our money, you know, yeah.
There's a big mixed bag in this.
I don't know what the city of Louisville does, if they have anything, you know, city of Louisville have any reading rooms?
they have the,
Yeah, that's
They have
the
the
Constitution
voting
Center, but I don't know
absolutely.
if you can use it
The
for.
article building, but boy, they
Personal
want
party.
nothing. They used to play poker, euchre, and they're the old guys, and they threw them out, so,
Yeah.
to the Eagles, you know. Do we need to do anything?
I'm at the point, I think we just leave the resolution as it is. You know,
what is the resolution? We don't have a copy of it.
And I don't know, I'm not,
Yeah.
I don't wanna refer to something that I don't know how it
Right.
reads, but,
I don't
you know,
either.
I think for now, I think we keep our policy what it's been, and, it's used for, you know, civic, and, case by case, civic and governmental, occurrences, if they need to use it for those different, you know,
Yeah.
zoning meetings and,
Case by case to the board, you know.
town hall meetings and that kind of thing, or civic groups that they need an emergency space or a space. Most of them use a space. I know downtown in Louisville, there's spaces above these buildings that people use all the time, you know. So, some of those offices there, so there's places for people to meet. But when you start talking food and then restrooms and then kids, parking, you know, all that fixings that go along with it, I think it opens up a whole other can of worms that it becomes a lot different than having a meeting with 20 people.
Sure.
That's my personal opinion. So, I'm under the standing that I'll just leave it as it is. The person that wants to use it for Thursday, I'll see if I can find him another venue or something to help him out in that regard. If anybody has any ideas, let me know. But, I'm not trying to kick anybody in the ear for Thanksgiving either. It's not my intent, nor is it yours.
I know.
Yeah.
It's a shame. It
Yeah,
really is.
yeah.
It's embarrassing, actually.
Anything, Don?
Agree.
No, I'm with you,
We don't need to
looking
make a
forward to
vote.
changing.
No, it doesn't
anything.
sound like it.
Okay.
You know, leave it
Mid-90s.
as it is.
Okay.
Yeah.
But it brings up good discussion, and I think we need to have good discussion in this township
Absolutely.
to move forward in positive ways, and this is something we need to kind of be keeping our ear to the grindstone a little bit, and, planning out some things, and maybe there's a way we can help people locate a service and locate one of these things, so,
Well, if we had a Fultz community building, would be real nice.
yeah.
Can I say something? I had, for my son, for his wedding, I had to rent the Eagles at one time, and another time I had to rent the Folk Center. They require you to have a certain amount of people, and they limit it. I mean, if you was to ask them for 10 more people, they flat out say, no, we don't have enough facility here. We don't, and for safety, they give you a sheet of paper, and I'm telling you, there are a lot of rules to rent those places.
Sure, yeah, the liabilities
A
run
lot,
with it.
first
A lot of
thing
the
he told me
churches
liability.
too will.
A lot of the churches do civics, you're exactly
Well,
right.
no, I
I'll
mean,
do
even
it.
like this Thanksgiving thing, you might check if with one of the churches,
Yeah.
because a lot of them, if they have a gym or if they have something, they'll.
Paradises, they do a lot for. the
Yeah,
community.
Paradise does a lot of stuff for the civic groups, okay. Well, if there's nothing else, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second. Motion and a second, voted please. George,
Yes.
Jennifer,
Yes.
Don? Yes.
Okay, everybody.